Falls soccer tournament. This was a devastating decision, as we had just won 3 state championships in soccer. Our guys love soccer. We wanted to keep playing in the fall. I was bound and determined to keep it, even though we had to travel to Norfolk, Nebraska, Mankato, Minnesota, and Sioux Falls, South Dakota to play. I remember when asked by a parent, "Are we going to keep fall soccer, or are we going to look at football?" My response, which would come back to haunt me, was, "No way are we going to get football. Never. Football's expensive, it's dangerous, and our boys love fall soccer." Well, in less than 2 years, after frustration with scheduling, and with some other Christian schools starting football or have started, I changed my mind. In the fall of 2004, I gave a presentation to a special board meeting regarding football. After much discussion, the board asked, "Who's going to coach football? Who in the Christian school system knows football?" I told them about a Northwestern grad who lived in California, who had called me only 2 years before and told me, "When Unity gets football, I want to coach." That night, the board voted unanimously to start freshman and JV football the next fall. That same night, I called Mr. Crochelle, who had moved from California in hopes that Unity would start football, and told me we were going to start. And I wanted to ask him officially. I said, "What's your response?" He said, "I believe it is God's will that I come to Unity to be its coach. I will absolutely take it." The rest is history. My friendship with Perry has grown stronger and stronger, and he has proven that he is a man of God and wants his football players to be men of God also. Lesson: never say never. God knows the plans he has for us before we do. I remember chapel speakers. I've listened to many of them over my 36 years here, 35 years. There are several that stand out, but one is especially etched in my mind. I actually remember more than just his speech. I was asked to introduce this particular speaker. It was back in the 80s sometime, but I don't remember when. It was a time when we were witnessing a significant amount of PDA, public display of affection at school. As we were walking to chapel, which happened to be after a short break, we came upon a couple in the hallway that seemed to be hanging all over each other. The gentleman, oh, by the way, he was 6'7", African American, so a little bit intimidating. He said to the young man, "Are you going to marry that girl?" The boy said, "I don't know." He said, "Then please keep your hands off somebody else's wife." Wow, what an interesting perspective. In fact, I hadn't quite thought of it that way, but he had made a point that stuck in my mind, and I took opportunity to use it a couple times myself since then. Well, the speech was about as blunt to the point as a one-liner to the young man in the hallway. The speech was using Matthew 28, verse 18, sometimes called the Great Commission. "Go and make disciples of all nations." Go, do just that. Be a witness all over the world. Go to any state, any country. Go, he went on to say, "You folks here at Unity are so blessed. You are literally in a hotbed of Christianity, Christian family, Christian church, school, community. Don't all stay around Northwest Iowa. Go out. Go to a different state. You don't have to be a missionary or a minister, but go out. You can do that in any career. Just go. Some of your parents aren't going to like my advice to you, because your parents want you to stay close by, so the grandkids are close by someday when you get married." Well, now that I look back on it, I smile. All 3 of my kids moved over 2,000 miles away from my wife and I, and maybe it was foreshadowing for me. But the thing I learned was that we all need the challenge to go and be a witness in whatever career we go into, wherever God calls us. In fact, in the next phase of life, I hope to do just that. I hope to go to projects to various parts of the country and take my years of being in this hotbed and be a witness elsewhere also. Finally, I remember the 2005 basketball season like it was yesterday. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times, just like Charles Dickens said in The Tale of Two Cities. did we ever have a great year. All 5 starters actually were so good they went on to play college basketball. The coach of the 2005 team was a motivator. I will never forget. He was an encourager. He was competitive. He had a good sense of humor. He was a dear friend with whom I enjoyed being assistant to. I remember the game that we played in order to get to state. Battle Creek, Ida Grove, had a very good team with one great player. Battle Creek, Ida Grove, Battle Creek was down by 20 points in the sub-state game in Sioux City. The mother of this young man, who was a great player, was not very happy. And we had kind of heard in the background some lady hollering. But we didn't know exactly who it was. Well, we found out. Because at halftime, as we were walking back from the locker room, the lady comes up to our coach and says, "You wouldn't be this good if you didn't recruit." I will never forget the answer the coach said to her. He said, "Your son is an excellent player." I don't know what she thought about the answer, but she was quiet, and I was impressed. What a kind way to diffuse someone's unfair criticism. We went on, as some of you may know, to win the state championship that year, along with excitement, pure joy, and celebration. I remember the locker room the night before the state championship game, in the barn, they called it, Vets Auditorium. It was dead quiet. We were all sitting in a circle on chairs in this tiny little stinky locker room, waiting for the coach to give the final instruction for the game. But he didn't say anything. Everyone just looked at him. He was silent. Finally, after about a minute that seemed like 10, I said, "Last night in the motel room, the coach said we ought to run this," and I went through a little bit of the game plan that we had talked about. I don't even remember now whether we ran man-to-man or zone or how we started, but I remember saying what the coach would have wanted me to say. I finished, we all jumped up, and the coach said, "Go get him. Let's do it. I know we can do it." The coach's enthusiasm and encouragement of the players that night was awesome. They did it. They won the big one, as he said. What a night. The following week, we had a celebration at chapel. The coach was at his best, encouraging, joking, making people feel happy. Then came the worst. The coach, who was so loved and respected, had a pain. His hip was in a mess, and in order to deal with the pain, started taking prescription painkillers, which led to more, which led to being hooked on meds. This now explained the locker room silence before the big game. The medication and the stress of the big one was overwhelming. The result led the coach to seek help, make recovery, then move on to another school. I remember the pain I felt through this experience of seeing a wonderful Christian man, my friend, go from the heights to the depths. Going through this for me was only exceeded by the dread I felt when my wife was attacked with a serious kidney disease. But I learned the coach's kind response to an angry lady was more impacting than any difficulty he faced and overcame. I don't ask you to remember all my memories, but please remember what I learned from a few of my memories. All biblical ideas wrapped in life's lessons. Always build up, encourage. Never humiliate or put down, even if it's fun. Number 2, hope motivates. Never give up. You can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. 3, be a witness. Wherever you go, never hide the light that was hopefully brightened while you were at Unity. God knows the plans He has for you. Never say never. You may have to eat your words like I did. And number 5, a kind response stifles a fight. Never retaliate. These are just a few memories I learned in my many years.